Lowry inbounding, hands to Valanciunas. Back to Patterson. Valanciunas flashes into the basket, goes up, and Gobert swats it. Man, he is going to be special. Here comes Trevor Booker leading the break to the cup. Rising high misses. Offensive rebound, Gobert, and he lays it back up and in. Welcome to Tip-Off today on a Friday, right? It's a Friday. We're talking at the Lock offensive rating, who's the best, what does it show us about what's going on around the league, and we'll take a look at the magic rule of top 10. Plus, we'll take a look at the Jazz and the Magic coming up tonight and talk a little bit more about where the team is. It's all coming up on the thing we call Tip-Off. Bum, 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 bum. Good morning. Welcome to the show. Hope you're enjoying your version of coffee or the coffee, whatever it might be. Things are well, I hope. I gave this shout out late in the show yesterday, so I'll do it early. 2 shout outs to the Matts. Matt from Seattle, who I met the other night at the game, and Matt in San Diego. Shout out to both of you. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoy. Hope it keeps you connected. So, what do we got today on the program? We got us just hanging out, having breakfast, chilling, getting the caffeine into the veins so that I can live the day. Jazz Magic tonight, 7 o'clock. I'll be flying solo on the radio, which means we better play well. Because when we play badly, if I'm solo, I don't have a moment where I can let Ron Boone say something while I calm down and become less of a total freak and then and say anything stupid. So if we're playing badly, you know, kind of the way you watched OJ's white Bronco car chase, you should flip on the radio because you never know what stupid thing I might say next. Then you have to promise you don't tell anyone, so I keep my gig. Okay? Sound like a good deal? All right, appreciate it. The program today is we're going to look at some of the kind of we're almost at the 20 game mark. Most teams will probably hit it Monday or Tuesday. I'm just going to do it today. And I always think the 20 game mark's a big deal. You're a quarter of the way through the season, and some of the numbers start to be real. And so that's primarily what we'll take a look at around the league. So let's get to it right away. Let's go.
This is Ian Clark, and you are Locked On Jazz.
Great. All right, time for the NBA 5. Thank you very much, Ian. Who are the best offensive players in the NBA right now? And I have something that I really believe in. It's called the Lock offensive rating. Sometimes I would say it doesn't value it. Actually, I'm not going there. The premise of the Lock offensive rating is it measures the efficiency of an individual possession, and it measures how often you're able to get a shot off. For example, DeMar DeRozan does not use a possession above the league average. He's actually below the league average. I think Toronto's actually going to be surprisingly fine without him. Once it takes them a few days to figure it out, then once they allocate those 20 possessions, they'll be fine. The key is that they have Kyle Lowry who can already use 20 possessions. You got to have somebody on your roster who's a high usage player. If you have no high usage players on your roster, then even if you have all the most efficient players, it's a problem. The other one that I really believe in is if you look at almost every champion, not all, but almost every champion has had every player on the team using, in their 8-9-man rotation, using possession above the league average. And what you really get into is in a 7-game playoff series when they start to take away option 1, 2, and 3, boom, you now are above league average even in those possessions, and then you become pretty unstoppable. We can look back over the years. The Dallas team that won it had everybody but Jason Kidd, I believe. One of the Miami team that won it, I think everybody was above average. San Antonio last year, my memory, I can pull it up really quickly, is everybody was above league average. So this is something that I do kind of fundamentally believe in. The only people on San Antonio below league average last year were Aaron Baines, Austin Day, Damian Jones, and actually Tim Duncan was right at league average. Oh, okay. So, yeah, if you go back and look at past champions, what you get is teams that have almost all of their players above the league average. It's always kind of a good way to check. For example, that's what I think will prohibit Toronto from winning it, is the fact that when they do have DeRozan back, they have 20 possessions a night that are below the league average. That's tough. Go back to Miami's championship. The only players on that team using possession below the league average were Josh Harrelson. Okay, didn't play. Norris Cole, 7 possessions a night. James Jones and Jarvis Verando. That's that's pretty much the whole team. So that's a big one. We'll use that throughout the season. But who are the best offensive players in the NBA last night? If you're playing 20 minutes a night, the number one guy in the league right now is Steph Curry. His lock offensive rating is a 52. 10 is average, 20 is a high level starter, 30 is an all star, 40 is Durant and LeBron, 50 is like Yao Ming, and now Steph Curry. Here's what's interesting to me on this accord is number 2 is Kyle Korver. Um, Number 3, this is if you play 20 minutes a night, is Anthony Davis. Number 4 is Tyson Chandler. Number 5 is Chris Paul. Number 6 is DeMarcus Cousins. Number 7 is Isaiah Thomas. Dennis Schroeder is only playing 16 minutes a night, or only playing 17 minutes a night, but he would fit in here for Atlanta. That's a real find. It's a big deal he's doing that. Damian Lillard, Jeff Teague. So there's 2 things here out of this group that actually jump out at me. One is if Brandon Wright was eligible, he would actually be tied for or he'd be number 2 in the league, and Rasul Butler in Washington, who's only playing 19 minutes a night, but he's hitting 57% of his threes. 3 things jump out at me here. One is Brandon Wright and Tyson Chandler are both listed one of the best offensive players in the league. Now, Wright only uses 7 possessions a night, and Chandler only uses 10. And we don't think of them that way because they don't have a lot array of moves, but they're doing something in Dallas's system, the way Dallas plays, that they're both shooting 70%. It's something we should look into with Rudy Gobert, because that's the player Rudy Gobert is going to become, is the 70% shooting dunker. You can say, well, there's no skill there, but not everybody in the league's doing it. So there's something going on, particularly Dallas' system, and Carlisle is part of it. Dirk's presence may be part of it also, but there's something taking place here that's unique to those players and their talent, right? Robin Lopez is not doing it. Jonas Valanciunas is not doing it. There are plenty of other big 7-footers. There's plenty of other athletic 7-footers, but they're not shooting 70%. So it leads me to think one of 2 things. There's a skill set that we're undervaluing about those 2 players. And secondly, there's something in that offense that allows them to do that. It might just simply be Dirk, but there's something to be said for it, and it's probably the model we need to be trying to throw Rudy in. The other one that's interesting to me is that you have the rise in 3-point shooting in the league is showing its impact. Kyle Korver is the second best offensive player in the league. Well, he's shooting 57% from 3. He's taken 89 of them this year. He's hit 51. Steph Curry is the number 1 player in the league. This used to be Barkley and Malone. This is the 3 has become so prominent that if you use if you're shooting 8-9 threes a game or whatever these guys are, then it's a huge weapon for those players, and they become the best offensive players in the game. So to me, pretty incredible kind of flip and turn there on some of that. The other one that I would keep an eye on is Jeff Teague and Dennis Schroeder, second year in Mike Budenholzer's system in Atlanta. Both of them have become terrific, whether it's the big picks of Al Horford are back, or I'm not sure, but that's the similar offensive system to what we're running. All right, now what about what's the filter I have in here? All right, so who are the worst offensive players in the league that are playing 15 minutes? Now I switched it down to 15 minutes a night. C.J. Miles is the worst offensive player in the NBA this year, unfortunately for Siege, and he just not doing much of anything right. Josh Smith of Detroit, what an unmitigated disaster that is. His lock offensive rating is a -30. I mean, it's colossally bad. Willie Green, interesting. Michael Carter Williams, who I love so much and have liked, and he had a big night the other night, and his numbers look good: 16.7 rebounds, 7 assists a game. Except for the fact he's shooting 37%, 24% from 3, and he's going to the line rarely. Dion Waiters, Rookie Alfred Payton, who we'll see tonight. Willie Green's in this group. Vince Carter, who's having serious ankle problems. Lance Stevenson, Rajon Rondo, Jason Thompson, Thabo Sefolosha, and Kemba Walker goes into this. To me, pretty surprising. Not surprising, but you look, okay, what's wrong with Charlotte? Well, Lance Stevenson is using 15 possessions a night, dramatically below league average. That's hard to come back from. Uh, I'm a huge this I'm a strong believer in. If you're using your possessions, if you have guys using 15 to 20 possessions considerably below average, it's really hard to come back from just to get average. If you were to think that you get about 100 possessions a night, okay, if we just go with about 100 possessions a night, and if you take out turnovers, you're down to about 85 possessions a night, because that's really, but this counts turnovers. So if the league average on turnover possession usage right now is about 0.94 points per game, and Lance Stevenson is using 14 possessions a night at 0.7, you're on those 14 possessions, I'm not going to be able to do all this math off the top of my head, but you're 0.24 points below league average on 14 possessions. That's 3.36 points. Okay, you now have another 85 possessions. You have to be making up 0.04 points per possession on the other 85 possessions. That's a lot. That means your other guys all have to be just out of this world fabulous. We have a little bit of that going on with both of our guards. If you go to weareutahjazz.com/lockedonjazz and go to Locked On Jazz site, I have our numbers up. Trey and Alec are both below the league average. The fact that Quinn's got us at an above average offense right now in the NBA, or at least close to it, is pretty remarkable. Trey is 0.81 points per possession used. Alex 0.88. That's 29 possessions a night at well below the league average right there out of our guards. And then almost Joe Ingles is below possession. Rodney's really far below. Dante's really far below. Our bigs aren't, but the rest of the guys are. And to our point of yesterday's show, the guys are doing something they've done before, are comfortable. Our number 1 and 2 lock offensive rating guys are Gordon Hayward and Derek Favors. They're playing better than everybody else. They're really playing quite well when you look at it. All right, so that is what I was going to do today. Quickly, one other quick note for you. I thought I guess I could have brought up the whole the players going to the free throw line most often per game in the NBA. They're actually using possessions. So what I do on this is I filter out players that you got to be using more than 8 possessions a night, so that you're actually an offensive player. So as always, Dwight Howard is kind of on the top of this list. Jimmy Butler's going to line 19% of his possessions. Jonas Valanciunas getting fouled a lot, 18 possessions. James Harden is at 16.6. Sacramento's Darren Collison's at 16.2. This one stunned me. Mario Chalmers at 15.8. DeMar DeRozan at 15.8. Tim Duncan at 15.6. Lou Williams at 15.6. So Toronto's really got a bunch of attackers. Sacramento's got Cousins and Collison in the top list of guys going to line. Marc Gasol, we always think was kind of a jump shooting, mid-range jump shooter, is at 15.3 trips to the line. Gordon Hayward's at 13.7. There's a bunch of guys in there, but that's pretty good. And then the only one that's a little disappointing, or is a little, probably more than disappointing, that's a little different than it has been the year past. And he's never been particularly strong early in the year, so we probably don't need to worry about it a great deal. But Alec is not using a possession above the league average, partially because he is now going to line 12.5% of his possessions. Gordon's going at a much higher rate than he is, which is different than what we've seen in the past. So there's that. Guys who go to the line the least in the NBA is actually almost funny how rarely some. Jameer Nelson simply has gone to the line in 1% of his possessions used all year. Marvin Williams 1.7%, Vince Carter 2.5, Al Horford 3.1% of his possessions all year. Avery Bradley 3 point lead, two surprises: Serge Ibaka 3.8, Nicholas Batum 3.9, and Trey Burke at 4.0 are some of the guys uh, that use their possessions most often. So there you go. That's kind of our NBA 5 and
Hey, this is
Stats Geek.
Gordon Hayward. I want to hear from you. Call 801 200 3738 and ask me a question. That's 801 200 3738 to ask me a question.
Thanks for doing that. Please interact with our show. We get those questions in and use them. It's a lot of fun. Glad to have you doing that. 801 200 3738. 801 200 3738. Let me. By the way, Orlando's pretty good. I watched Orlando last night. Tobias Harris, a nice player. Without Vukovic, they held okay against against the Warriors, and then got blown out by the Clippers. Elfrid Payton's never looking to shoot, but is breaking in the lane, getting in the lane. Airballed back-to-back free throws yesterday, which was a little disconcerting, or against the Clippers. I don't know, they're not bad, and they've got some guys who've played. I mean, to kind of the conversation that I think I will probably hold with here for some time is, are they asking guys to do something they've never done before? And if Vukovic is back, then Vukovic has been a multi-year starter. He's kind of on the same pace as Favors and in his starting, and we're seeing that Derek is kind of comfortable and pretty consistent night in and night out now. Then Victor Oladipo is kind of right where Trey Burke is, second year. I don't feel like those guys are totally there yet. But Tobias Harris has now been a starter since they got him from Milwaukee for a year or two. Channing Frye's a long-time starter, pretty comfortable. Ben Gordon coming off the bench, pretty established. Luke Ridnour, backup point guard, pretty established. Willie Green, long-time backup shooting guard. I mean, their bench is far more established than ours. Evan Fournier is in a first year as a starter as a shooting guard, and so you see that youth. I mean, they still have a lot. Elfrid Payton, it's all new, and that's why they're 7-14. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be surprised if this Magic team didn't make a little run. The Aaron Gordon injury is too bad, but I found myself kind of liking them. All right, let me run through. There's a bunch of questions on the board, and I got about 5 minutes to get to them. What kind of player do you think we will target this offseason? Myself, I think we will let Ennis go and draft a big man with some range, Karl Towns perhaps, or we end up worse with maybe Frank Kaminsky. Dominic, I'm 19 games into this season. I haven't even thought about it. I'm sorry, I can't even give you any answer at all. I haven't watched any college players. Last year I had the big board posted up here. I probably got to do it again. Last year I had a little program that told me when these guys were playing so I could watch them. Haven't done that. Probably need to do it again. But I don't have the answer to that. I apologize. We only let Ennis go is if somebody else gives him a big offer and we don't want to match it. We can still pick him up on a qualifying offer. He's also still restricted. So if he doesn't get a mammoth offer, we can match it, anything we want, or we pick him up on the qualifying offer the way the Pistons did with Greg Monroe. I'm not sure that if Greg Monroe didn't get an offer in the offseason, I'm not sure why I think Ennis is going to. Maybe because people don't think we're going to. Love tip-off, never miss it. Keep up the great work. Jeff Van Gundy interview was great. He mentioned a couple of things I wanted to get your take on. One, growth of Jazz directly tied to Trey Burke. Agree or disagree? I heard that. I thought that I actually had that in my notes to talk about today, and then saw how many questions were. The really a comment that the Jazz success this year will be directly related to Trey Burke. Well, first of all, if your success is directly related to a second-year point guard, probably not great. Probably means you're in a little bit of trouble on how often you're going to win ball games. If you look at Jeff Teague, who is probably a similar player, he was a late first-round draft pick, decent draft and a good draft, unlike Trey was in a bad draft. Teague was 19th, and if you look at him, his first year he shoots 40%, his second year he shoots 44%, his third year he becomes a starter at 48%, but not an impact player. And then his fourth year is when he finally digs in a little bit, becomes a 16-point-a-game scorer, 15-point-a-game scorer. Then last year he takes the next step to 17 points a game, and this year has been fabulous at 18 points a game in the system. Really, it's just been fabulous. I mean, really, he's developed a three-point shot, shooting 49% from the field. Jeff Teague's been great. But that's He's 26 now. It took him 2 years sitting on the bench and then 2 years as a starter before he clicked in. So that's a long process if you're relying on him to be your starter. Mike Conley, who was number 3 pick of the draft and is, far more athletic and more gifted just naturally than Trey. Uh, opening year 9 points a game, shoots 42%. Then next year he starts half the games at 44, gets to 10 points, 11 points a game, and then I'm doing this very rudimentary rather than digging into advanced stats. But then by his third year he's at 45%, 12 points a game, and then takes another. So I think that's true. I think it's why we're going to lose a lot of games this year, and I think it is a good reminder that that's what we're relying on. But I also think Trey's development, how Trey develops, can dictate how soon we get things going. If Trey doesn't develop at all, then we're waiting on Dante, and then we're 2 or 3 years away from having a big impact on things. So yeah, I thought that was a great comment by Van Gundy. I'll probably use it on the pregame show today. Lastly, after Quinn Snyder's wake-up game tip-off the next day, you asked for a wake-up T-shirt. I got you a Quinn Snyder wake-up coffee mug. How do you want delivered? Oh, that's awesome. I don't know how I want to. Email me at dlocks09@gmail.com. We'll figure it out. That's awesome. That's really cool. That's so cool. Absolutely. Every morning I'll be right here. Thank you, Devin. That's great. Comparison for the Jazz is the Washington Wizards. They weren't good post Arenas. Then they got Wall and Beal in 6-month-year rebirth. The core grew together, filled in pieces to match team chemistry. We are just beginning, but the core is there in the growth. Yes. 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 Amen. I've always thought the Wizards are our model. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think ours is here's where ours is a little different, and I think our Wall is Exum. Our Beal is who we're drafting next year, and then our 6 years starts. Or not quite, but Wall's probably year 4 or 5. Yes, and then Hayward and Favors stick around, and they become 2 of the veterans, and then you add your Gortat and your Nene. Yes, absolutely. Totally agree. That's a great way to end the show. Good job, Tom. Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon.